idea here is take a step back and talk about climate change impacting Colombia, Latam. All my colleagues, all my friends here have been talking the whole day about carbon market, how Web3 is involved, what is the role of Web3, but I would like to take a step back and talk about Latam right now. And yeah, so someone told already today, climate change is something that is not in the future, it's happening right now. We have been listening about climate change since school, and always something that is in the future, but it's actually something that is impacting our lives right now. So this was last year in Colombia. Due to climate change, we had heavy rains that destroyed people's homes. People had to leave their places, and 250 Colombian people died last year, and 200 was injured due to climate change impact. If anyone experienced something and want to share, please feel free to do it. In Cali City, in March last year, the city in one day received the amount of rain that you were supposed to receive in the whole month. It made people die and lost their houses, and it's something that is increasing. This year as well, because of the heavy rain caused by climate change, we had 47 deaths and 49 injured people in Colombia. 18,000 families was affected. So everything that is happening right now, even if it's not impacting our lives directly, is impacting indirectly, because people need to move from their cities, and the whole economical situation of the society, not just local, but globally, is affected. And climate change is something that is not local. Even if you don't live in Colombia or if you don't live in Latam, if you know anyone that is actually passing by that, we need to understand that everything that is happening is global. And everything like the nature that have been destroyed due to climate change is also a powerful tool that is a nature tool to mitigate climate change. So this was recently in Pantanal. Pantanal is a rich, super rich biome shared by Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Argentina. It's super rich, and there was a huge fire recently because of climate change. There was a hydrometeorological phenomenon, and because of the drought, these fires started and burned heavy green matter. So, and this green matter, not just from Pantanal, from the mangroves and from the forest, is a nature too. We have to uptake the carbon gases from the atmosphere that causes climate change. This is some projections for Colombia, but again, I'm talking about Colombia because we're here right now, but this is happening in the whole world. So this is the projections. We have 2 degrees increases in the next decade. And this first image is a study that shows that Colombia will be too hot to be living with. Some cities in Colombia will be too hot to believe it. And this other image is a study that shows the precipitation change. In some areas, it will be so low that agriculture will be affected, will affect the citizens and affect the economical. And other areas is opposite. The precipitation going to be higher and causes all the disaster I showed before. This is okay. So why is this happening? Because I just realized this is an old version of my presentation, but it's fine. So what is happening? Because of increase of population, industrialization, our behaviors as consumers, and what actually also affects the behavior of the industry as a total, we are increasing emissions of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. It's the cars we're driving, the way the industry works right now, the deforestation caused by crops. So a lot of forests are putting down to give space to crops or to cattle. and it increases the greenhouse gases. These greenhouses, they trap the heat on the surface, the atmosphere, that causes the climate change and causes all the impacts I just mentioned. So what are the emissions in Latam? Most of the emissions in Latam are done by deforestation and burning trees to give space to crops, to monocultures, and in Colombia, specifically, we have coca production, so a lot of forests are destroyed to give space to these crops. And we have illegal mining, we have forests putting down to give space to cattle. And one interesting data anyway is that Latam altogether, the whole emission of Latam in 2018 was actually just 17% of China alone. So this is interesting to talk, like I'm talking about Colombia here just because we're here, but this is something we need to talk about in the whole globe. So what must be done? So we're talking the whole day about carbon markets, but carbon markets should be something as a complement. The basis of the solution should be reducing emissions, how the industry can change the way they're doing things right now, and we can reduce emissions, the industry and us as individuals. The other basis of it should be conservation and protection of the areas we have right now. Because as I mentioned, Amazon, the forests, the mangroves, all the natural resources are natural tools we have to mitigate climate change. Because all these biomes, these areas, they have the power, the natural power of uptaking these gases from the atmosphere and reducing the impact of it and climate change. And together with it, we have the carbon market that is a way that companies have to, besides reducing their emissions, to contribute with projects that are uptaking these gases from the atmosphere. So a company should be reducing their emissions, and also they contribute with the projects that are uptaking these gases from the atmosphere. I don't know if there's someone here that's not familiar with carbon market. It's basically if we have in Colombia someone that have a forest and they are protecting it, they can generate carbon credits and put on the market, and industry in Japan, like automotive industry, they can get these carbon credits and offset their footprint. This is how the carbon market works. So what have been done in Colombia to reduce emissions, to offset footprint? We have changing on the way of doing agriculture. So instead of putting down a whole forest to establish of crops, we have agroforest, where you can have production of crops and you still have trees. So you can have, for example, the plantation of cocoa, plantation of coffee, and you still have trees there. What is good for the ecosystem, and is a way of uptaking these gases from the atmosphere. It's not just crops and trees, and it can be crops, trees, and cattle. And it creates not just, it's not just a good tool to mitigate climate change, but it's also good for production. A lot of people have been doing this not just because of the environment, but because it's actually good for the production. Some people are now not having clean places with cattle, but they plant trees because it's also reduced the stressful environment for, yeah, you know that, yeah. So it's actually good for the production. Even with the cocoa, coffee, when you have trees there, you also increasing the fertility of soil. So the farmers, the people that have land, they understand that it's not just good for environment, it's good for their own business to have these systems that is more sustainable. Carbon market. Sorry for the slide. Actually, I sent a new one, but I think they didn't update it. But so carbon markets in Colombia is actually on the highlights. There's a lot of potential of areas that are being protected and generating carbon credits. And the idea that the government have here is that these carbon credits can generate revenue to the community. So carbon market could be something that are not just contributing to the environment, but is also contributing to the local community. So people that are protecting the environment, they can receive something for it. But carbon market traditionally is there for decades, but we're talking now in a way that we can resolve the gaps we have in the traditional market, in the Web2 market. So what are the gaps right now, for example, in carbon markets is the lack of transparency. It's a little bit shady. People don't understand. It's there for a while, but still, like, people don't understand how it works. It's not democratic. It's just companies are the ones buying this carbon credit. So what Web3 are trying to do now is make it more accessible to people. So not just companies are able to offset footprint, but also individuals. Well, it couldn't be done in Web2 in the traditional markets. Other thing that Web3 is trying to solve is to give more transparency in the whole process. So with the blockchain, people can see the whole transition of the carbon market. Still, there is some gaps in Web3 as well, and this is what everyone together are trying to resolve, like all the discussions here, what we are talking outside of the talk says how now we solve the problem of when we uploading the data to the blockchain, how we can reduce lack of transparency. So this is still a gap, but we're trying to solve this with Web3. Again, sorry for the lack of the information. I think they mistake with the, and I think it's the last one. I'm so newbie that I didn't put any contact information. So if anyone wants to connect and want to talk about it, yeah, I will be glad to.
We have room for 1 or 2 questions for Ester.
Oh, me too.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
You speak Spanish or English?
Yo hablo español, sí.
Okay, because it's easy for me to
Sí,
ask.
¿podría hablar español, por favor?
Hablas de la conservación de los ecosistemas. Yo soy de acá de Colombia, de Medellín. Hablabas de los sistemas agroforestales y eso, es muy chévere. Eso contribuye mucho, pero ¿qué hacemos con las tierras que están muy cercanas a las ciudades? Muy cercanas a las ciudades. No sé si conoces Medellín, Santa Elena la acabaron. Son bosques cercanos a las ciudades o hasta dentro de las ciudades. ¿Cómo te imaginas tú que de pronto se puede ayudar a proteger para que la expansión urbana no los acabe? La expansión urbana y el turismo muchas veces son los que están acabando con los bosques cerca a las ciudades. Y aparte de eso son los bosques que conservan el agua y que producen el agua que consumimos en las ciudades. Entonces, si no hacemos nada, nos vamos a quedar sin agua en las ciudades. No sé qué ideas tienes para eso.
Sí, estaba diciendo que las áreas cerca de la ciudad que tienen potencial de proteger el ambiente están siendo destruidas por que está creciendo la ciudad.
Yeah, the urban expansion.
So he's asking me how, like in the city, we can protect the parks that protects the water. I will answer in Spanish first.
No, you can answer in English. No,
I can. Okay, so I recently read an article really interesting that was saying that some green areas, there is a correlation between people destroying green areas and the economical power of the city increasing. But also this study shows that these areas, if they was protected, with the carbon credits generated and in the market, it could bring economical power to the cities as well. So what people need to understand is that there is this potential of the carbon market, protecting an area is a potential of bringing money to the city. So if people understand that if they protect these green areas, they can also make money from it or receive some revenue of doing it, people will be more protectful of the green areas. Because in Latam and in Colombia, what happens is why people destroy forests and green areas is not just because people are evil. They're not, it's just because people, it's the way they make the living. Some people have no economical basis, and they need to put trees down, or they need to destroy an area to put a house. So what we need to do is, together with protecting environment, is protecting people economically and giving them another answer. So, no sé si me comprendieron en inglés.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so with the parks, the protection of the parks is, it should be a governmental, like a city issue. They should be aware of it. And they should give to the people that are destroying these areas an alternative. Because people are probably destroying it to create, to build their houses. And in favelas in Brazil, for example, the favelas were constructed in forest. They just did it there. It's actually danger to them. When it rains, these kind of things happen. And they do it not just because they want to destroy things, it's just because it's the way they are able to make their lives. So the answer for your question is, we need to, it should be like a circle, it should be something complete. We should talk about environment. We should talk also about the community, how we can protect environment and protect people's lives.
Yeah, since you're from Carbon Fi and there's a lot of carbon projects or Web3 carbon projects already out there, like Moss.earth, Toucan, Flow Carbon, etc. What are your focus areas? What are you trying to do different? Are you engaging in origination of are you partnering with, for example, forestry projects, or what are your
So what Carbon Fi does is giving access to individuals to offset footprint that is not, people are not able to do in traditional markets. In traditional markets are complicated and just companies are involved. What Carbon Fi does is they buy carbon credits from projects. They are protecting lands, they are reforestation projects. They buy these carbon credits, they mint it into ENFTs, call it CNFTs, carbon credits ENFTs. And individuals can buy it. They can buy the ENFTs, they can choose the project they want to help, they can buy the NFT, they can hold it. They can sell later, or it can just mint it, take out of the market. Other companies, Moss, Toucan, they have an exchange as well. So it's also a base where people can introduce their own carbon credits and people can buy it, companies can buy it. There is a project in Brazil. I think they're just starting, but what they are doing, and it's not just buying carbon credits from projects, but they are buying land themselves. They are doing reforestation themselves, generating the carbon credits, and putting on the market to people to offset footprint. Not just individuals, but companies as well. This is